Hello and welcome to another edition of Motivate You with June Archer. Today's guest is so much more than a motivational speaker, author, and life coach. He's one of the most sought after speakers these days. His love and relationship advice for women has the social media platforms on fire. He has appeared on programs such as the Oprah Winfrey Show and the 700 Club. Today, he joins us on Motivate You. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Mr. Tony Gaskins.
Hey, how you doing, June?
How you doing there, brother? How's everything going?
Awesome, working hard. Pleasure to be with you.
It's awesome to have you. Tell us what you've been going on with, man. What's going on? What's new and exciting in your world?
Well, the newest thing is I'm working with a professional sports team as their exclusive life coach. So it has been a challenge like none other. You know, when you're working with 20, to 30-year-old guys who are making, $3 million to $30 million a year and trying to speak into their lives and help them. It has been a beautiful challenge, I should say, just very demanding.
That's awesome because we realize that they need it now more than ever. Being so young and coming into so much money and influence and power and so much attention, it is well needed. So definitely thank you for that. And we look forward for updates on more teams that you'll probably have because we want to speak that into existence. So I'm going to get right into it, man. What got you started on this path and on this journey to motivate and inspire people?
It started when I was 22 years old. I wrote my first book. I wrote and published my first book at 22. And it was because I love giving advice, because my father would always give me advice. And I would just kind of speak life into my friends. And one day I was giving advice to a young lady to give to her brother concerning relationships. And because I saw him on Facebook posting some of his relationship stuff. And she was like, you tell him. She was like, you're the biggest player that I know. So you tell him, he'll receive it better from you. And I was like, okay. So I answered her question as to the advice that I was giving him. And she was like, you're good at that. You wrote that very well. You should write a book for us ladies. And I was like, okay, get me 10 questions from your female friends. We were in college, around, 21, both of us like 21, 22. And so she got me 10 questions and I gathered, the 10 most asked questions and wrote a book. And I had always wanted to write a book. I had started writing a different type of book. And this one just came so much easier, because I had been a player and, chasing the ladies. And I wrote it, and that's what started it.
Did you find that guys tended to kind of not want to read those things because you were talking kind of specifically to the women, or did you find that some of them did listen, or are there men that kind of, man, I don't want to listen to Tony, man, like he's putting the business out there? What kind of happened after you put that out there, and are you getting attention from the men in terms of, all right, Tony's on to something?
Right. At first, and even still now, the guys, they were like, man, you're giving away the game. You're giving away all the secrets. I'm not even going to read that book because I already know what's in it, all the secrets. And basically, for me, I just was like, I can't get caught up in that. I can't care about that because once it was spoken to me, then I became very passionate about it because at that time, my sister was, in a toxic relationship, struggling, with an abusive boyfriend. And my mother, she was single after having been married for 25 years. And so she was struggling. So that gave me a deeper inspiration during writing the book. So all the guys that I know, they turned their back on me. They were mad with me, but I had to go forward anyways.
Well, we have this thing where we, along our journey, certain things happen. And I read that you had a scholarship, you went to school, you kind of were on that path. You didn't really have the path of, being homeless or, those things. You had the opportunity to go to college, get an education, but there was a crossroad for you. Let us know what happened there.
I was in college on a full football scholarship. I went to public school first in the ninth grade, and I got arrested for stealing from the mall with one of my friends, and both of us were pastors' sons, so it was like we were kind of seeking affirmation from the world because we were the good guys, 2-parent home, and everybody else was single parent home. And so you just feel unrightfully privileged. So you start kind of going the wrong way, trying to fit in. And because you don't realize you were born, to stand out. And so we were stealing and we got arrested, went to jail. And my mom, I remember her just crying, like, please don't let this be my son. And then after that, I went to a private school the next year as a sophomore to play basketball because the new coach, he talked to my AAU coach and was like, hey, I'm looking for players. And my coach said that I was the only player on the team, smart enough and able to handle private school work. So I went to play basketball, and my junior year, they started a football team. So I started playing football, and I became, I led the county in rushing, which in Florida, I'm from Polk County, which is the largest county in Florida to my understanding. And so I led the county in rushing and, averaging over 10 yards a carry. And so, of course, I'm this, athletic kid, and I'm playing with Christian private school guys. And so it was kind of easy for me. And my 12th grade year, I ended up only playing 6 games, but in those 6 games, I had like 1,300 yards. And so it was enough, to get a scholarship. I didn't play basketball that year, and I got a full scholarship. I committed to a Division I school, and then the D2 school came and offered me a full scholarship, and I went there. And being there, during my red shirt, I got caught up, trying to fit in, trying to be somebody. I got hurt, and I felt, worthless, insignificant. And so what made me cool, I couldn't do it. And so I saw everybody smoking and drinking. I didn't smoke and drink. So I started selling the weed. I started selling the weed because I had cousins who were selling weed, and they had been doing it all their life. And so I would get it from them, traffic, across the country, sell it at school to the kids who were smoking. And that gave me my cool card, but that started to distract me. I got more caught up in being a ladies' man and a drug dealer and, a wannabe thug, that I wasn't focused on football, wasn't sleeping right, wasn't eating right, wasn't lifting right. And I continued to get hurt. And I was by far, the best athlete on the team. It was one other guy who was as athletic as I was. And he was focused. And so he took my position as a starting running back. And 3 years into the scholarship, $30,000 a year scholarship, which is, a lot in college, my coach kicked me off the team, and I had to come home. And I kind of continued down that path until I met my wife.
Wow. So you leave school, full scholarship out the window. What piece of advice can you give to that young man now who's getting ready to go to college, who's in college, who's having the same issues and facing those same adversities that you did? What piece of advice can you give him now that you could kind of look back and see what happened?
To put it simple, I would say, don't be afraid to be amazing. You could be the president one day. You could be the world's largest motivational speaker or pastor. Don't be afraid to be amazing. I was afraid of my own blessings. I was afraid of my greatness. I was afraid to step into my calling because I was so favored and so blessed. I played football and it came so easy for me. I went to college, and without stretching, I was running a 4.3, 4.4, and I was without trying hard. I didn't even understand what the offensive line does for you as a running back. That's how easy the game came to me. And I was averaging over 8 yards a carry in college, running against the best defense in the conference, which was our defense. And it just came so easy that I just took it for granted. Then in the class, it came easy. I didn't study, and I made A's and B's. And so God had his hand on me in a way where I was favored, but I was afraid of it because I didn't want to be better than everybody else. I didn't want people to say, oh, you think you're better than us, or you're this, you're that. So I kind of dumbed down and stoop to a level that others were living at. And I could have lost my life, And so I would tell that young man, that young woman, don't be afraid to be amazing. Accept your blessings, walk in your call. If you were blessed to be fortunate enough to have favor over your life, accept that and walk in it. And you'll be surprised where it can take you.
Do you think the influence of being a not only a pastor's kid, but in the church, that there was probably a fear of trying to live up to what it is that your father portrayed and kind of was the person he was in the community? Or it was just kind of, I just wanted to kind of do what I want to do and kind of figure it out on my own, and then you kind of got lost?
Yeah, it was more so I didn't want to be different, from everybody else. I was the oddball. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't even curse, like literally when I say I didn't curse, I don't say the D word, the A word, and that was like, at that point, I'm the only person in the world, it was what it felt like, who doesn't say a curse word. And so I had found ways to be different, by not drinking, smoking, cursing. But yet then at the same time, I couldn't go all the way and be totally, completely different. So I still found ways to fit in. And it was just me not wanting to be the oddball, not wanting to be the odd man out, and ostracized. And it turns out I still ended up that way today, the odd man out, being in the industry that I'm in and being 100% faithful to my wife, not getting drunk, not smoking, not cursing, not clubbing, just not doing what everybody is doing in the world. And I wasn't ready to be that person, at 20, 18, 19, 20, whereas now at 31, I'm more comfortable being an eagle versus being a turkey. So it's, I think it was just a fear.
No, that's amazing. I want to get to that piece where you talk about commitment and being faithful. Off camera, we were talking about premature birth, and something that you and I both have in common. When you left college, or in the midst of leaving college, you and your wife now were having a child. She was with child, and that child came out premature. I want to talk about, and this is going to be specifically to the men, what it felt like. Because for me, it was pins and needles, right? Because you're trying to figure out, all right, listen, it's preterm labor. There's all these things that are going on. And then here it is, you have a child that was born early and you're afraid. From your perspective, from your experience, how did that feel?
It was scary because I didn't understand medicine. I didn't understand, science. So I thought premature means the child is just waiting to die, And so I thought him being in the NICU was his deathbed. And so I was distant. I was afraid. I was working 40 hours a week, of course, taking care of my wife. And I was scared, so I didn't want to get too close because I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to recover if I fell in love with my baby and then he died. So I kind of was distant, and, I would go see him, when I got 2 days off a week, I would go see him, on like one or both of those days. Whereas my wife, she was there every day, all day. I told her she didn't have to work. And of course, I think I was making $8.50, $9 an hour. So we literally were just kind of scraping by, but it was, what we had to do. And, I was just stressed and trying to be a man. I was 23 years old. And so that was when I told myself I was going to go back to the street life and start back selling drugs. And so I went and got a little bit of drugs from my cousin. And, my son was born in April. So this was around May, June. This was the beginning of June. And I thought my wife would be okay with it because she wasn't working. And so I was making like $9 an hour. I thought she would be okay with me selling a little bit of weed to help us out. And she was like, no. She was like, I didn't marry that man. You gave that up. And that was a part of the agreement that you would walk in your purpose, be who you were called to be. I had already become an author in February of that same year. And so, she threatened to leave me and she walked out. And so I got the message, and it was just scary every day. You know, like you say, pins and needles. And then he came home after 3 months, and he came home on a feeding tube. And that was like so stressful because, you know, we had to feed him every 2 hours, but we're having to feed him through a tube. So you got to go through this whole process. You know, we had to wash the tube out, and, you know, it's like oatmeal stuff in there. So it was all thick. So it's literally like you sleeping like an hour at a time, and you know, like an hour, hour and a half, and you got to get right back up, go through this whole process with the thing, you know, hook it up. And it's like by the time you get back in bed, you right back up. And then the next day I got to go to work, you know. And so it was like, it was the hardest thing I've been through in my life. And it was tough. It was really tough on me and my wife. And, you know, to any man that goes through it, I would say, understand that, you know, 9 out of 10 times your child can live. And even if there's not a chance your child can live, just bear down, you know, buckle down and love your woman, draw closer to her, you know, speak life into her, help her, hold her, caress her, and, you know, and fall in love with your child, you know, and don't be afraid of, don't be afraid of the unknown, you know, just trust the process. And I didn't do that. And, you know, I could have ruined everything.
Yeah, because it's at that time where they need you the most. I remember my wife reading a blog of women who were talking about men leaving their wives on bed rest and leaving their wives because of the situation before even the child was even born. So that's why I really wanted to speak to the men who are, you know, they kind of forget that the small print, right? Death do us part, sickness and health, for better, for worse. So for you, like you said, to caress them, to love them, just kind of be there before that child even gets here. Because in the event that you left before that child was born, how can you yourself teach that, if it's a young man, how to be a man when you actually left and walked out?
Right. Exactly. It's huge. It's huge. It's a huge call, but it's worth it. It's worth staying in the fight. You know, that child means so much more.
And how old is he now?
He's 8 years old and doing amazing. I mean, amazing. Best soccer player on his team. He doesn't play rec. He plays travel league. The doctor, because of his, you know, being premature, he went through eczema. He has eczema. He has asthma. Just a lot. I mean, his skin used to literally just look like it was melting off. His eczema was so bad. And we've always had him in Christian school. So the kids, you know, they would pray for him. He literally would miss 3 or 4 days every week. So my wife hasn't worked since she had him. You know, she's 29 now. She had him at 20. So she hasn't worked in 9 years because she kind of always has to be on call for him, you know. And now he's in karate on Tuesdays. He's in the chess club. He's in the engineering club, star soccer player, the best reader in his class, back-to-back regional spelling bee champion. They say he's a genius. They tested him, and he reads and comprehends on the 12th grade level, spelling and decoding as a college freshman, and he's in 3rd grade. I mean, the guy says words and spells words and reads words that I've never heard of. So it was like through all of that pain and that struggle that he went through, God was doing a work in him and preparing him for something um, beyond our comprehension.
No, it's amazing. We've actually gone through the same thing, so I know your struggle. So I got definitely give a shout out to the March of Dimes, who are very responsible for always taking care of those babies in the NICU. They do an amazing job, man. So I got to give them some love. I want to move. I want to shift a little bit, and I want to talk about, you know, who is that one person or persons, be it mentor or your dad, that gave you some profound advice or life lesson gem that you could share with the audience today?
For me, everything is about love. You know, that's the foundation of our world. And my father, when I was changing my life, when my wife had walked out because I went back to the streets and I begged her back, and she came back with some stipulations in place. And I was talking to my dad. She told me I had to get anger management, or, you know, like go to counseling. And I was talking to my dad because she allowed me to work with him. And he said to me, he said, you have to love like you've never been hurt before. And that was one thing that just stuck out with me, and I just never forget it. And it was the shortest phrase he's ever said, because he's long-winded. and, and he said, you have to love like you've never been hurt before. And so basically what that meant to me is to heal, to heal, stop holding the pain from my past and the things I saw growing up, in the streets and with family and in my household, stop holding on to that pain and letting it show up in my life, and allow myself to love and to be loved, to drop my guards and to love a person, the way God loves them, and allow them to reciprocate my love. And I made that shift. I was 23 years old. I made that shift, and my whole life changed. When I started loving my wife the way God loves her, and then she reciprocated that love, it changed my entire life. After I went on Oprah and Tyra Banks, New Levels, New Devils. So it was at that time that different women started coming at me and playing games, and it was a woman that I got too close to. I got too close to her. I was 25 years old, new to this, spotlight, and got too close to her. But because I had changed my mindset and changed my life and started to love and receiving that love, that was the closest I ever came, to an affair with my wife at 25 years old. And after that year, 2009, I was able to, renew my mind, wipe slates clean, and move forward and be 100% faithful to my wife, all from loving and allowing love. And so loving as if you've never been hurt, I think that was the gem that changed everything for me.
What is that baggage? Because some people don't know what that baggage is. Can you explain to people what that baggage is that they're holding? Because some of them don't realize that they're in the same place they were 6 months ago. They're in the same place they were a year ago, 2 years ago, in the last relationship they were. What are those pieces of baggage? What do they look like? What are they? Can you tell?
Right. They are, you seeing divorce, you seeing a single mom struggling, you seeing your father abuse your mother, you seeing your boys or your girls cheat on their partners, their spouses, you being cheated on, you being cursed out by your ex, you being belittled or talked down to. It's all of those things that you've seen, that you've experienced, or maybe even your past, what you created, you being a cheater or a liar or abuser, and you holding on to it, and you start to believe that this is what love is, that this is how I have to be. I can't be 100% faithful. I can't, not be verbally abusive or emotionally abusive. I have to be this way, because if I'm not this way, it's going to be done to me. Mm-hmm. And I can't trust my partner because they're going to eventually cheat on me. So we begin to believe and accept those beliefs, and it hinders and it limits our potential in our relationship. And so those are the things that you have to renew your mind from, that you have to let go, that you have to heal from, and start to believe and understand that you can grow, that you are worthy of the best love that's out there, that you're worthy of it. And not only are you worthy of receiving it, but you're capable of giving it. And I think that's the change that you have to make in your mind. You got to make that decision and then take action on it. And so that's what I did. And man, I learned some valuable lessons. And the lesson was so profound when I began to love my wife the way God loved her, and to watch it transform her mind, body, spirit, and then to receive the reciprocation of that love, and then to have that love produce a new lifestyle. From us going from being on welfare, food stamps, government assistance, living in the hood, me making $9 an hour, and us eating ramen noodles, literally, or, and living off $25 that we had to stretch over 2 weeks' time, being late on bills, lights and water being cut off from us going from that to love, me loving her, her loving me, her speaking into my life, telling me what she saw in me, and then me believing in myself because she believed in me, and knowing that God was on my side, for me to go from there and to start to produce the things that I was producing and putting into the world, and to become a millionaire from that. Love was the foundation of it all, to become a millionaire, before the age of 30, after having no college degree, no training, no certification, no mentors, no circle, no power network, poor, dumb, and country. I'm still country. And so, but to know that love was the springboard, love was the catalyst. And that was life changing. And that is why, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand when they look at me. That is why I teach love, because of what it did for my life, because I experienced the power. And now it's become trendy. It's become a thing to do. People think that there's money in it. That people think that it's a gimmick and it's a game. And a lot of the people who teach on love, when you look at their story, it didn't do for them what it did for me, but they do it because they see people like me doing it, and they see the success, and they see what looks like money and fame or notoriety, and they don't understand, the behind the scenes. They're just looking at the highlight reel.
Right. The testimony doesn't match up with the journey.
Right.
So a lot of these things you talk about in your books, and now you're giving it mileage by giving it a platform with the Real Love Tour. Talk about the Real Love Tour and why you put it together, and what you've been doing out there on the road, because it's an amazing experience from what I've seen.
It just hit me that I want to spread love around the globe. And so I just took and started booking tour stops, no partners, no sponsors, nothing, just me in-house. A lot of the venues I booked myself, I would hire consultants or contractors, so to speak, independent contractors. I would hire different people to find a venue in their city. They can give me a heads up, and then I'll get on the phone and book it. And then I'll just show up and I'll get volunteers who have bought tickets. I'll send an email out to to everyone who bought a ticket and ask for volunteers. And so I would actually let my supporters run the seminar for me. And I go in there and I introduce myself. I go and get the mic, introduce myself. So we don't have any acts. We don't have any singing. We don't have any this grand entrance, Some of them, I don't even have a banner up. It's literally just real, raw, relevant, relatable. And the people love it. I mean, I've done New York like 4 times. The same people come back every time. Getting ready to do Miami this Sunday, January 31st for the 3rd time. Real Love Miami 3. And some of the same people coming back. And so it's just something that I took. I live by this quote that I always remind myself of from Albert Einstein that says, make it as simple as possible and not one bit simpler. And I think a lot of people fail on their tours because they have this grand vision and they do too much. And they don't realize that if you just have a message from your heart, that's all the people need. Is a microphone and some chairs. You don't need all the designs and the glitz and the glam and the whole staff with the matching t-shirts and, all this. Just go in there and talk from your heart, share your message. And then if you got some books or some products you can put at a table in the back, people will go and support you, and you just keep it going. So now I think I'm in a 3rd year of the tour. It's simple. Just real simple. And last year we took Johannesburg, South Africa, Nairobi, Kenya, doing it in the islands, and different places. I'll find a partner, in that city, and I just go. The Lord hasn't laid on my heart yet to partner or do any brand alignment. It's just me, because I know He's giving me a unique message that that only my life can produce. And so I'm just running the race. And until I get that feeling that says, okay, the real love has ran its race, ideally in my mind, I'll still be doing the real love tour when I'm 60 years old, and have at that time spoken to millions and millions of people live, because right now I'm just speaking to 200 to 700. So I have a vision that one day it'll be coliseums, full, and I'll be teaching on love and the healing and transformational power of love, and be in the race for a Nobel Peace Prize for a message on love.
Oh, that's amazing, bro. And we're gonna speak that to existence, and we're gonna pray for you, man. You're doing some amazing stuff. Before we get out of here, any words of encouragement, words of wisdom, inspiration, motivation that you could share with our listeners?
I would say the most important thing that I want people to understand is to speak from your pain, speak from your struggle, speak from your shortcomings, speak from your mistakes. Don't play a role. Don't try to be what looks successful. Don't try to be what you think it's supposed to look like, but be authentic and be original and be you. And what you're going to notice is that a lot of people will copy you. A lot of people will follow you and, mimic themselves after you, just being original, and just being authentic to who you truly are, and speaking from your struggles, from your pain. That's what I would say. We live in a trendy society to where everybody wants to do what looks like is working. And that's where we fail. We become a bunch of clones and copycats. And so I kind of adopted this thing to where I don't look anywhere. I don't look left. I don't look right. My eyes are on the prize, and I look within and I listen for what God is telling me to do. And I create from that space. And then by accident, I will look up and I will see other people doing the exact same thing that I'm doing to the T. I mean, sometimes it is an exact replica, but I say, you know what? That is the power of authenticity and being who you are. I see people at the top. I mean, people who reach millions, on Sundays, and teaching my exact message, using my exact quotes. They don't say my name, but I know that they've come in contact with my message and with my brand, with my space. I know that we have in the same circle of influence. And it's just a confirmation in my spirit from God to say that if you are truly you, authentically you can change the world. You will influence influencers. And it's crazy. Today it just happened. And I don't say these guys, you don't want to say anybody's copying you, or anything like that, because that would be arrogant. But it is to say that if you are authentic, God can use you in the same way that you see people who are mega celebrities being used, people who are being used by God. And I sent it over to my guys in South Africa. I saw a quote today on my popular page. And sometimes just out of habit, I go to my popular page and there's this quote. I don't know if it'll show up. And it's TD Jakes. And basically it says, when you follow your purpose, the profit will follow you. But if you run after profit, you will run out of your purpose. And this is from 2 hours ago. They posted it on his page, which I'm assuming is from his message yesterday. It's kind of how they make the quote cards, right?
Right.
So I sent it over to my two guys in South Africa, because this exact quote is on my YouTube, and it's me preaching in South Africa. And I said, don't chase money, chase purpose. And if you chase purpose, the money will chase you. So the same message that I said in 2013 is now being said by one of the mega stars almost verbatim in 2016. And so it's confirmation in my spirit. Just today, this just happened. And I sent it to the guys. I say, hey, this sound familiar? And I knew they would remember it because every time I go over, they say that to me. Man, I'll never forget when you said, don't chase money, chase purpose, and the money will chase you. And I went to MegaFest in 2014, and my session was called CEO of Me. And I told my story, and I said in that session, don't chase money, chase purpose. And so what God is saying to me, and another example of that was my 30-day rule. I mean, my 3-month rule. I put it in my book in 2007. What Daddy Never Told His Little Girl. You could buy the book and check it. And then in 2009, it came out from one of the top relationship, guys who had stepped into that space, Steve Harvey. He called it the 90-day rule. And when you read the rules, they're verbatim. And I wrote that when I was 22 years old. And here it was, this gentleman who was 50 years old had made my rule famous and his rule. And it was a confirmation that when you are authentic and when you're doing what you're called to do, you are no less qualified than anybody else doing it. But a lot of times we feel like we need to look at somebody else and copy them instead of just being ourselves. And you're going to realize that a lot of great minds think alike, and a lot of influencers will be saying the same thing. Some are copying, some are original. And so if that's a sermon in itself, it's a message in itself, I just would encourage everybody to look within and produce your message. Produce your message, and you're going to realize that those who went before you, who were culture shifters and touched the world, that you have the same gift, that God gave you the same message that he gave them for you to deliver in your own words, in your own way, to your own following, your own demographic. And it may just be 3 or 4 words different because I'm sure those guys would say, I don't even know who Tony Gaskins is. I've never read anything he's put out, and I'm definitely not copying him. And if that was to be said, then guess what? I would say there's only one source for wisdom, and that's God. And he's using different people from different generations on different paths to get a message out.
Oh, man. Tony, this is awesome, man. This interview has been amazing. I hope those who are listening and watching got something from it. Can you let us know where we can find you, where we can follow you? There's a like page and what you have coming up.
TonyGaskins.com. That's, all my courses and everything that I do, I teach. That's one thing that I believe in. So entrepreneurship with purpose, I have that course. Real Love University, I have that course. Life Coaching Certification Program, I have that course. The Birth Your Book Program, I have that course. So everything that my life has produced, I put it in a course so that it can help anyone else who wants that insight and knowledge. And Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, it's Tony Gaskins, across the board, just my name, Tony Gaskins. YouTube as well. And I'm just trying to share my message every day.
No, that's amazing. Before you get out of here, man, I'm a music guy, and I like to end the show with asking all of my guests, what is your theme music to the soundtrack of your life that you could share with us today?
I listened to this song recently, and I used to listen to it growing up, and it's called Stand by John P. Key. And it's just talking about after you've done all you can to stand therefore, even more. And I think that would be, my theme song, gospel, and just something speaking to my heart, to soul to say, look, you running a marathon, not a sprint, and you're gonna be knocked down, talked about, cheated, and everything, but you gotta stand. You gotta keep going. You gotta keep pushing.
There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from my brother, Tony Gaskins, his song, Stand by John P. Key. We want to thank you for being here, motivate you, listening and watching. Please support Tony Gaskins. Remember, TonyGaskins.com. You can find him online. And listen, support anything he has coming out. Look out for the Real Love Tour. This is June Archer here with Motivate You. Thank you so much for checking us out. Have a wonderful day and stay motivated. And remember, yes, every day can be a good day.